name is Richard Sherman. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Hearings and Mediation Services for the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. I've been assigned to conduct a legislative hearing tonight on applications by Constitution Pipeline Company and Iroquois Gas Transmission Systems for various state permits that are needed to construct a 124-mile natural gas pipeline and associated upgrades to the Iroquois Wright Compressor station. These are DEC application numbers, bear with me on this, 0-9999-00181/00009, and in sequence through to 00013, and also 4-4350-0008/00012. The pipeline will extend from northeastern Pennsylvania to Schoharie County, New York. Today's proceeding is being held pursuant to Article 70 of the Environmental Conservation Law. And that is not the end of our hearing. I don't know where our lights are on.
There's a car on my shoulder. Give her a minute.
The hearing is being held pursuant to Article 70 of the Environmental Conservation Law and Title 621 of Title 6 of the compilation of codes, rules, and regulations of the state of New York. The purpose of our hearing tonight is to get comments on these applications and also on the draft Air Title V permit. If you wish to make a statement today, please be sure to fill out one of these cards in the back of the auditorium and return it to the table. We will be calling speakers in the order that they complete the cards. I will also accept any written comments that people may have with them here tonight. Both written and oral comments are given equal weight by the department. If you'd like to submit a written comment after tonight's proceeding, you can do so as long as it is postmarked or electronically submitted no later than February 27th of 2015. That is an extension to the deadline. It had been January 30th, but it is now February 27th. Those should be sent to the attention of Stephen Thompson, who is the gentleman seated to my right. His contact information is in the Environmental Notice Bulletin, public hearing notice. It is also in the notice that was published in the 4 papers along the proposed route of the pipeline. I also do have the affidavits of certain affidavits of publication from those 4 newspapers, as well as a copy of the ENB here with me. I understand that staff has a brief opening comment to make, and I will turn to him now to make that on the record.
Thank you, Judge Sherman. Can you hear me back there? Thank you. Yeah, in addition to what Judge Sherman has stated, just want to point out that the permits under consideration today are for, and I won't try to correspond these to the numbers that he read off because I'm not really sure which one is which, but they are a water quality certification, a freshwater wetlands permit, a water withdrawal permit, an excavation and filling navigable waters permit, a stream disturbance permit, and these are all for the proposed Constitution Pipeline project. And for the Iroquois Gas Transmission project, the compressor station project, it's an Air Title V permit. So those are the permit types that are under consideration today. I'll point out that in the hallway behind us at our DEC table, there is a handout which includes most of the information that we're looking at today. Also, there's a form about how you can submit comments by the end of the comment period. This project, the combined project, Constitution and Iroquois projects, are components of the Interstate Natural Gas Transmission System. And this is regulated primarily by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC. As such, FERC has approval authority over siting the proposed facilities and preparation of an environmental impact review under the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. The FERC's general authority over this project limits DEC scope to those permits that I listed just previously. And as many of you know, FERC, the FERC process began in April 16th of 2012 when the company submitted a pre-filing application to FERC and culminated in a final EIS from FERC on October 24th, 2014, and an order to approve on December 2nd, 2014. This permit hearing is meant today to solicit your comments on the DEC applications related to this project. And following the end of the comment period, as we said, which was extended to February 27th, DEC will review the comments received and include them in the consideration of a final decision on the permit applications. And DEC will provide a response to substantive comments received related to the permit applications as part of a final permit decision.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to begin calling the speakers now. Please note that speakers are encouraged to submit lengthy statements in writing and make only a summary of their comments here tonight. As you can see on the board behind me, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes to allow us to get as many people on the record as possible this evening. I understand we have the facility until just shy of 10 o'clock to allow the staff here to close down the building properly. When I call your name, please come up to the microphone, state your full name, and spell your last name for the court reporter. Please remember to speak clearly so that your comments may be accurately transcribed. And lastly, I ask that you be respectful of all those expressing their views here tonight, even if you disagree with what's being said. With that, we have 2 elected officials that would like to speak. They too will be limited to 3 minutes apiece. First, I would like to call Carolyn Price to the microphone, please.
My name is Carolyn Price, P-R-I-C-E, and I'm the supervisor in the town of Windsor. The southern tier was the valley of opportunity. With the announcements of no casino, no high-volume hydraulic fracturing, the southern tier became the valley of missed opportunity. With the Constitution Pipeline, there are 6 or more opportunities that will benefit the southern tier. 1, landowners paid for easements. 2, jobs associated with pipeline construction and maintenance. 3, business for gas stations, eatery stores, campgrounds, rentals. 4, tax revenue for county, schools, and local governments. 5, road repairs. And 6, infrastructure for access to natural gas. 2 pipelines, the Millennium and the Laser Williams, go through the town of Windsor. This is what these opportunities have meant in our town. 1, landowners were paid for easements. There was an overall level of satisfaction with what they were paid. 2, people from our town had and still have jobs related to the pipelines. 3, gas stations, eateries, and stores in our town saw an increase in business. There was an increased usage of campground sites. Apartments and houses were rented. Number 4, tax payments made by Laser and Williams were $1,298,241 in 2013 and $1,343,642 in 2014. Pilot payments made by Millennium were $166,995 in 2013 and $277,341 in 2014. The total tax and pilot payments made by these 2 companies in a 2-year period was $3,086,220. Number 5, over $1 million in road repairs in our town has been paid for by Williams. This has made it possible for the town to repair other roads that would have had to wait if it had not been for Williams's work. 6, the town with 2 major pipelines has the infrastructure for access to natural gas. Leatherstocking is currently having the engineering work done to bring natural gas to the town of Windsor, the village of Windsor, for schools, government, businesses, and homes. The 2 schools in the village will be the anchors for using natural gas. School officials estimate the savings from using natural gas rather than oil to be in excess of $300,000 annually. When George F. Johnson looked around the southern tier, he saw the factories, clinics, and housing for workers he could provide. When you look at the bare earth where the Constitution Pipeline will go, you should see all the opportunities that will come with the pipeline. We in the southern tier support the Constitution Pipeline and the many benefits it will bring to the southern tier. Thank you.
My name is Robert Murphy, M-U-R-P-H-Y. I'm Director of Economic Development for the City of Binghamton. Mayor David has asked me to speak here on behalf of the Constitution Pipeline. In particular, although I recognize that the pipeline does not go through the City of Binghamton, we do realize that there are many city residents, both laborers and professionals, construction workers, et cetera, both Teamsters, the laborers, locals, plumbers and pipe fitters, who will be obtaining employment through there. As many as is estimated, I believe, $80 million worth of work within the state of New York, something in the neighborhood of 800 jobs. 1,300 jobs, at least on a temporary basis. I remember speaking at one point to a bunch of construction workers, and the one construction worker had a great point, and he said, well, these are only somebody had said to them, these are only construction jobs, how long do they last? He said, well, I've been here for 35 years and I put 3 kids through college, so they last a good long time if they just one project after the other. So I would ask that the state of New York recognizes that, and recognizes that this area does need both the infrastructure generally, and then the support of a project like this, which is going to be a large dollar amount. I will not begin to try to follow up on Carolyn Price. She has the numbers better than I do. I'm kind of a Johnny-come-lately to this issue. However, what we like to do is the City of Binghamton would like to support the Constitution Pipeline and its funders and its future employees on it. Thank you very much.
Epifanio Bevilacqua from town of Franklin. B-E-V-I-L-A-C-Q-U-A. We keep on putting fossil fuels forward and no recyclables. We should be going renewable, because the earth is not going to stay here forever. So the water is going to be contaminated with all the debris and stuff that they're going to do, and they're going to kill all the trees and oxygen. And it's only going to cause temporary jobs for a little while, but you got to breathe, you got to live somewhere. And you keep on polluting it, the air, the soil, and everything else, because they're going to put compressor stations eventually in some places, and they're going to flare them and everything else with the carbons and all the cogenians in it. And who's going to suffer? The next generations to come. So we just keep on putting infrastructure that we shouldn't put recyclables. And that's what we need to do. So that said, thanks for having me speak.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Russell Honaker, H-O-N-I-C-K-E-R, and I come from the village of Cooperstown. There's nothing wrong with carving a half a football field wide up and down the hills here, where we have floods called 100-year floods every couple of years. There's nothing wrong with that for the elected officials of Binghamton. And there's nothing wrong with going over 277 bodies of water and putting in pesticides and herbicides which wind up in water, drinking water eventually. And there's nothing wrong with going across all these trout streams. There's nothing wrong with going through about 1,800 acres of good land and plowing it under. And there's nothing wrong with making water missiles up and down these hills where the water will come crashing down. It comes to a place and it has an effect. And there's nothing wrong with that, because some of you will get jobs. Well, there's a tale of two regulatory agencies, and one has said that fracking is not going to happen, and on the other hand, we're building the infrastructure which affects water. And I urge the DEC not to put forward the necessary permits to build these pipelines, the Constitution Pipeline, and to build compressor stations. Because when our Commissioner of Health said he wouldn't want children anywhere near these operations, then it doesn't make sense. If the only way you can get a job is to have people served by eminent domain and have their land taken from them, then there's something wrong with this equation. And if our elected officials can only give up our land to have all the trees cut of half a football field wide up and down our hills where we have mudslides, there's something wrong with our elected officials. The health of our people is the most important thing, and the health of our water is the basis of everything. The DEC made some problems with GE and the contaminants in the Hudson. Let's not do it now. Enough people know this. Let's not let it happen. Let's prepare for jobs that don't take people's land and contaminate the landscape.
Thank you.
My name is Lisa Barr. Regarding the political operatives who just spoke for this boondoggle, please consider the Green Party's Green New Deal, 4.5 million new jobs converting to solar and wind power in New York State. I live in Oneonta, New York, but I drive often to Binghamton, through Binghamton to visit my sister who lives in Towanda, Pennsylvania. The resultant truck traffic increase from the fracking this open access pipeline will bring, if the DEC allows it, will endanger not just my own life as a motorist, but all in the areas adjacent to it. Repugnant as the strong-arm tactics used by this industry's eminent domain services the past month to grandparents taking grandkids home from the doctor, for example, is this industry's history. They have spied on striking oil, chemical, and atomic workers union members in Baytown, Texas, as they spoke with journalists about safety issues in 1981. And now they plan on using chiefly non-union employees to further exploit the ill-gotten exemption from the Clean Air, Clean Water rules and ethos via war criminal Dick Cheney. Please note that all who oppose this pipeline will watch and condemn the DEC officials should permission be granted to this pipeline. This industry has subverted our democracy, taken us into needless war, at least since the late 1940s, but most obviously in the past 20 years. The revolutionary Cuban government woke up and threw these corporate colonizers out on their collective ear in the 1950s, and I would not be surprised at all if someday soon it becomes obvious that public interest dictates nationalization here of oil and gas industry assets. So DEC, it will be noted as a treasonous sellout that endangers more than safety in our region should you approve this. The pipeline path, for instance, will ruin recent efforts to honor U.S. Revolutionary War hero graves of Timothy Murphy, among others, situated in Schoharie County. It will also ruin the historic path taken by other Irish immigrants to this region. They marched through the same valley slated for needless destruction by the fossil fuel industry. Rock climbing clubs and individuals who enjoyed hiking Vroman's Nose will also be adversely impacted. I am reminded of one of my own mentors and that of my sisters, someone the DEC should emulate. The late Benjamin Levy, a Texas appellate justice, co-founder of the ACLU, he refused to join the Houston bar because he said it was rife with oil company whores. I implore the DEC to emulate the late Ben Levy. Don't join the ranks of oil company whores. Don't approve this pipeline. Thank you.
Stan Silicki, Whitney Point. S-I-E-L-I-C-K-I. Thank you. I'll be brief. I just want to share a few thoughts. I've been watching the natural gas situation in New York for the last 6 years. I'm not going to bore you with statistics, but what I am going to offer is undeniable. As I was looking to provide some useful information, I kept thinking, this is easy. The Constitution Pipeline is a win-win, no matter what your vantage point. The pipeline will bring cheaper homegrown energy to market in the Northeast at a much more affordable cost. Natural gas keeps our air cleaner. The proposed infrastructure negates the need to move the product by tractor trailer or rail. It will create construction jobs. By the way, the most construction jobs are temporary. It will create jobs directly and indirectly. It will give a boost to our stagnant economy. I was thinking everyone in the room knows this. Why is it such a big hurdle? Each person in this room that is against the construction of this pipeline is committing the ultimate hypocrisy. They all use some sort of carbon-based fuel to heat their homes, fuel their vehicles, or purchase products where it is a feedstock. Who isn't on the grid? There's approximately 2 million miles of pipeline in the U.S. and approximately 5,000 miles in New York State. I do not recall a problem with the pipelines. The technology continues to evolve and improve. Materials have improved, and New York has the most skilled workforce to ensure the success of the project. So I am in favor of moving forward with the construction of the Constitution Pipeline as planned. Thank you.
Arthur Rorick, R-O-R-I-C-K. Dear Mr. Tomasic, I am commenting here today regarding a very crucial step in the project by Constitution Pipeline to bring frack gas into New York State and beyond. While I am not a directly affected landowner, I have several friends who own properties along the proposed pipeline route, and they have been immediately affected. I am sure that there are many other people whose voices will never be heard. I am opposed to the construction of the Constitution Pipeline project, as well as any other gas pipelines that have anything to do with fracked gas or any other natural methane gas sources for that matter. The greenhouse gas emission is one very important reason, as are lives of children who haven't even been born yet. While the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission's FERC final environmental impact statement provides many statements of how CP might mitigate impacts to our air, water, and soil, the disturbing reality is that regulations only favor large corporations because they can just pay the fines rather than actually pay or make any victims whole. Corporations are not subject to the true market, and they are in a special protected category where they are given immunity from market forces. This is only possible because of the government intervention in the economy. If the Constitution Pipeline was a project that actually benefited those who would have it on their property, then selling it would be no issue and eminent domain proceedings would not be entertained. I hope that you will not be swayed by large corporations and that you and your departments will exercise due diligence in deciding the true environmental impacts that this project would cause. Additionally, I hope that you will also take into consideration the tremendous need for oversight, inspections, and or monitoring that will be necessary should this project be given a green light. It would be appalling to find out that some contamination or spill could have been avoided if the necessary resources were available by the DEC. Lastly, the companies that are bringing or planning this pipeline do not have a very good track record. If you were to investigate these companies, you will find that all across our country, there have been various instances where gas and oil lines have been caused catastrophic events. These events are not always heard or about or recorded. Please help us stop this pipeline and any others for that matter. Help us defend our climate, our air, our water, because these kinds of projects will harm our environment, pollute our air and our waters, destroy families who have worked their entire lives to have the properties and lands they live on, and they will only benefit the corporations that steal from us in so many ways. Thank you.
Scott Lauffer, L-A-U-F-F-E-R. I live in Binghamton. We have a sole source aquifer that extends from Broome into Iroquois County. And there are many other sensitive water bodies that would be affected by the Constitution Pipeline. If we lose an aquifer, we lose a lot of drinking water for a lot of people. And this pipeline also will go over sensitive water bodies all along its route, some that provide good fishing and good recreation, as well as people's own private water sources. New York State is on record for calling for 80% renewable energy by 2050. So why would they be a willing participant in piping frack gas from Pennsylvania through our state and through the communities that we want to preserve and protect? Renewable energy will not have water quality impacts and will not emit carbon emissions. This pipeline will. New York State should show it means what it says. Let's get on track with going renewable.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
My name's Mark Pizzotti. It's spelled P-E-Z-Z-A-T-I. Department of Environmental Conservation issuance of a water quality certificate pursuant to 6 NYCRR 608.9 requires an applicant to demonstrate compliance with all state statutes, regulations, and criteria. Thus, any expected violations of state law by a construction project must result in a denial of the water quality certificate. This proposed pipeline route would cross 45 trout and trout spawning streams 84 times. As per the DEC's New York State water quality standards, trout and trout spawning streams are sensitive and have special protection. This is because trout can only survive in clear, cold waters with high levels of dissolved oxygen. Constructing the pipeline will require clear-cutting trees and digging trenches on steep slopes and clay soil. This will cause runoff, making streams muddy or turbid. For trout and trout spawning streams, New York State water quality standards state that, quote, there shall be no increase in turbidity that will cause a substantial visible contrast to natural conditions, end of quote. How can a pipeline be built and not have muddy water downstream? Will hay and silt fences stop the flow of turbid water? FERC's best management practices, such as silt fence, will not be effective in protecting water quality along the pipeline route. The FEIS Volume 2 Application Appendix A through R admits as much, noting that, quote, temporary impacts on fisheries and aquatic resources, such as macroinvertebrates from dry crossings, would be stream bank disturbance, increased sedimentation, and water body turbidity upon the return of flow to the stream following restoration, reduction in shading and cover, and modification of water flow. These temporary impacts could cause physical damage to the gills of fish, disrupt food sources and predator-prey interactions, in fact, impact fish passage, increase ambient water temperature, degrade spawning and nursery habitat, smother demersal eggs, and temporarily reduce reproduction potential, end of quote. This blatant admission of future violations of our New York State water quality standards are incompatible with DEC's lawful duty to enforce the Clean Water Act and protect those same standards. The DEC's mandate is to protect New York State water quality. To do this, the DEC must deny the 401 water quality certificate or hold adjunctory hearings for this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Thomas Collier, C-O-L-L-I-E-R. I'd like to take this back to square one. We don't need this pipeline. The need has not been proven. As an effective water user with a spring to drink from, 9.5 million gallons will lower my water table. My spring has run dry 4 out of 10 years in some decades. This withdrawal will directly affect my water supply. 9 million gallons will fill 12 miles of pipe. I will lose that water from my water table. You all will drink that 9.5 million gallons because you're downstream. What else will be in that water after being in 12 miles of pipe? Slag from 700 well joints, machining oil from the manufacturing process. Do not approve this water withdrawal permit for 9.5 million gallons. I did a little ciphering to figure out just what 9.5 million gallons looks like. It'll fill 12 miles of pipe. It'll fill 1,617 lengths of pipe. That's equivalent to 633 15,000 gallon semis. One withdrawal of 9 0.5 million. Now that only covers 12 miles. This pipeline is 124 miles long. Sounds to me like they have to take $9.5 million out 10 times. So how many permits are being applied for? One for each 9.5 million gallon withdrawal, or one permit for all 10 9.5 million gallon withdrawals? How many permits are we talking about? And do not approve this withdrawal permit.
Thank you, Mr. Collier.
Thank you for being here. Joan Tubridy, T-U-B-R-I-D-Y, town of Meredith, Delaware County. I was a farmer for 23 years, and I heat my house 98% with wood that I cut myself. The public policy of replacing coal and oil with frack gas with the intent of reducing carbon dioxide emissions and other contaminants has been shown to be a failure. We're actually accelerating global climate change from the vast quantities of methane being released and replacing one set of contaminants with another. Methane is a far more potent contributor to the greenhouse gas effect than CO2, on the order of 70 to 86 times more potent over 25 years. Methane is leaked along the entire process from extraction to end use, especially from compressor stations, through purposeful releases such as blowdowns and accidental releases from valves and gaskets weakened by corrosion and thermal stress. Gas turbines drive the compressors. These run at varying degrees of inefficiency, causing unburned methane to be released. Other releases include products of combustion like carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, formaldehyde, sulfur oxides, and nitrous oxides. Citizens living near compressor stations have repeatedly exhibited symptoms like nosebleeds, sore throats, rashes, headaches, dizziness, and nausea. Also released are residual fracking chemicals, so-called VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, which are unburned in the process. They're known carcinogens, neurotoxins, and endocrine disruptors whose synergistic effects with other compounds resulting in increased toxicity have neither been studied nor addressed in the regulatory process. Ground-level ozone, which reduces crop yields by as much as 30%, is one example. The DEC does not do its own testing of any emissions, relying on data provided by the self-reporting of industry, who serve their own interests with no regulatory oversight. Radon, a component of shale gas, is significantly higher in Marcellus gas than other shale deposits. It has a short half-life, about 4 days, but when radon decays, it decays to polonium, a deadly radioactive element with a half-life of about 6 months. Polonium decays, its progeny is lead, and we're all aware of the hazards of lead in the environment. These radioactive solids accumulate as part of the sludge removed when pigging pipelines. The final dispositions of these compounds have not been studied nor addressed in the regulatory process. The DEC does not monitor the radioactivity of frack gas in pipelines and compressor stations. All of these concerns about pipelines and compressor stations must not be viewed nor regulated in isolation. Since Kinder Morgan has stated their expectation for the NED is that compressor stations would ultimately be 20 miles apart, why would Constitution be any different? Segmenting this process by ignoring the cumulative effects of a gas transmission build-out leaves New York vulnerable to becoming a state whose health will become suddenly and irreversibly harmed. I have one more sentence. May I finish? I have one more sentence, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, please. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not helpful. None of this goes on the record. Only what is said at the podium goes on the record. So please let her finish one sentence.
A non-segmented methodical testing program to evaluate total emissions as well as their content in air, water, drinking water, and soil must be adopted, and epidemiological data must also be collected in areas of pipeline infrastructure. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is
this guy's
George
threatening me right here. This guy's threatening me right here. He's just trying to stab my neck. What? Now, I want him removed. I want him removed. He just threatened to stab my neck. I had sitting here quietly, haven't said a thing, and this guy's threatening to every single person in this room. Shut your mouth. No.
Gentlemen.
Kick me.
Craig Stevens, Ray Kemple, Jerry Hanahan, thanks. Mark Polis. I also, if your statement runs long, I will have to cut you off. Remember, we are accepting written comments, so if you run long on your oral comments today, you can always submit them in writing as well, in their full length. With that, Ms. Roy?
Yes, sir. My name is, can you hear me?
Folks, if we would have it quiet for the next speaker, please.
My name is Dana Lacroix, Lacroix. I think it's very telling to note which side of this room is having so much difficulty showing respect for opinions it doesn't agree with. I think that says a lot. Mr. Tomasic, the DEC is responsible for protecting our water. Leaks, ruptures, and explosions release methane into our water supply, into our aquifers. And as you probably know, Cabot and Williams, like many other energy companies, have a disgraceful safety record. It can only be described as disgraceful. In fact, there is a history of unwillingness of energy companies to take responsibility when things go wrong. In 2011, a White House commission concluded that there are systemic root causes for gas leaks and explosions and oil leaks and explosions, and stated that absent significant reform in both industry practices and government policies, such an incident as what happened in the Gulf might very well reoccur. My question to you, Mr. Tomasic, is have you seen significant reform in industry practices and government policies since 2011? In 2014 alone, and this is not a complete list, because I know that there are a couple of gas explosions that happened in my neighborhood that are not on this list. But here is a list, a partial list from 2014. January 2014, a pipeline exploded 15 miles south of Winnipeg. January 2014, a gas transmission pipeline exploded and burned in Manitoba. February 2014, Adair County, Kentucky, a gas pipeline exploded. February 14th, 2014, a gas pipeline exploded in Tioga, North Dakota. March 2014, a gas pipeline exploded near Fremont, Nebraska. May 2014, a gas pipeline exploded near Warren, Minnesota. September 2014, a gas explosion near Old York Road in New Jersey. I think it's very clear that energy companies do not do the things they're supposed to do in order to make sure that these kinds of things don't happen. There's a lot of money that gets saved by not being as diligent as they should be, and there's a history of that. And I don't think that you can drink money. So I urge you to deny this application. Thank you.
Rostboll is spelled R-O-S-T-B-O-L-L.
Excuse me.
Is that better? Thank you. When we hear all these numbers and accidents from far away, I want to just mention that I have a piece of property up in Delaware County. When I bought the place, a lot of the locals were talking about a big accident that happened in Blenheim, New York, when a gas pipeline blew up. Luckily, they said the school bus had just driven through, so only a few houses got flattened. A couple of years later, on my way home, I see a huge flame up in my own neighborhood, and lo and behold, it was a gas pipeline that exploded, and the whole neighborhood got together down at the fire station. My neighbor was sitting there with no hair, no eyebrows, no casualties, but I understand that there's a lot of accidents, a lot of leaks, a lot of problems, and I urge the DEC to take that into consideration. Also, I want to mention, I drove here using gas in my car. I live in a house that's heated by natural gas. Am I against gasoline and natural gas, well, you know, that's what we got. Back in the day when the automobile was introduced, if you were pro-automobile, but you rode a horse, or you were a hypocrite, you know, I think the future is in renewable energy. I don't think we can change it from one day to another, but I don't think there's any reason to be all backwards about it. So to the local politicians, remember, it can bring jobs, but it can also bring these explosions and pollutants. So I urge the DEC to be very aware in their assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Lottie Marsh, M-A-R-S-H. This is not the time for the New York State DEC to say yes to the Constitution pipeline. Dramatic storms have, in the last decade, wreaked havoc in New York State and are predicted to continue with increasing frequency and intensity due to climate disruption. Soil erosion, flooding, shifting rivers and creeks have already stressed DEC oversight and cost dearly for its citizens' well-being by acts of nature. Should construction of this pipeline be approved, much of the landscape will be altered forever. If the Constitution pipeline goes forward, will the DEC staff and budget allow for due diligence with oversight? Does the DEC feel confident that Constitution pipeline will protect our precious water? Does the DEC feel confident that the DEC can protect our water? Paying fines is nothing new to Cabot Williams. For all the damage they leave behind, it's become cost-effective. Constitution pipeline is not Mother Nature. It is possible to limit human damage to our environment, our air, and our water. To add consequences to our landscape, which can be avoided, is unconscionable. Please deny Water Quality Permit 401 that would forever alter our watershed and threaten our water quality. Thank you.
My name is Chris Bushnell, B-U-S-H, excuse me, N-E-L-L. I'd like to start this meeting by doing the Pledge of Allegiance for those of you in the room who join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. I'm a field representative for Labor's Local 785 and president of our local union. I would like to thank all the union brothers and sisters from all trades for coming out tonight for this important hearing. I'm also speaking to express my support for the application of the Constitution Pipeline Company, LLC, to construct the Constitution Pipeline through Broome, Chenango, Delaware, and Schoharie counties within New York State. The economy of the southern tier of New York State is still in serious decline. With economic benefits of the Constitution Pipeline to the communities in New York, the economic benefits of the Constitution Pipeline will be beneficial to the communities and the state of New York as a whole will be significant. Williams operates 16,000 miles of interstate natural gas pipeline within the United States, which have added value to communities by creating employment opportunities for numerous union workers and union trades. The Constitution Pipeline is good for New York State and good for the southern tier workforce and the people that live here. We need to maximize existing natural gas facilities and pipeline services. We cannot afford to discourage investment that leads to job creation, benefits our communities, while also increasing supply to local distributors, power generators, and manufacturers. We cannot allow New York State to miss out on the opportunities that natural gas development can provide us. I'm a proud member of Labor's Local 785. I urge the Department of Environmental Conservation to issue the permits so the Constitution Pipeline can finally become reality and we can get to work. We've been waiting for this project to get started for 3 years. We really need the jobs. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Judy Rowe, R-O-W-E. I live in a small town called Harpersville. I have lived in New York State all my life. I left at 18 to go to Florida, came back for a wedding, and realized that at a very young age that I didn't want to leave the rolling hills and streams of New York. My roots, I found out, ran deep. My husband of 36 years, Denny, is an operating engineer out of District 106 in Albany. Pretty much every job that he has had has been a temporary job. He's made good wages over the years, save for the winter months until the spring of the year rolls around and does it all over again. 2 years ago, we started in January waiting for a permit to be released for a connecting pipeline job, the Bluestone. He went to work in July that year, just because each monthly meeting, the job permit wasn't brought to the table. That hurt us big time, setting us back paying bills and real estate taxes. I just received our tax bills for January, and we owe over $9,000 in taxes if we pay on time. Our house in 4 acres is $6,524 in taxes. So we need Denny to go to work for our New York State property taxes and just to pay the normal bills. He can go to other states and work, but why do that when there is a job right here in New York State, right in our own backyard, just waiting to kick off? Please don't wait till the heat of summer to release these permits. We need it now, just as bad as a lot of construction workers around here do too. Denny's first job in 1986 for the union was working installing a pipeline. Not gas, not oil, it was an electric line. Y'all like your electricity. You don't mind that some of it might come underground without unsightly poles to look at, right? Some of you say these pipelines destroy woodlands, trees, water. New York State has the strictest guidelines for any state digging underground. I personally have observed these lands cleared and restored back to a state that our wildlife flourishes in. The overgrown weeds and fields that look so unsightly throughout our area are gone, and in their place are lush grasslands. Drive around and look for yourselves and see the results where current pipelines are. I have seen people walking through these grasslands because it is now walkable. The wildlife enjoy the new wildlife grass mixtures growing in their habitats. I have heard that a pipeline takes a minimal amount of trees, and it's in the Constitution pipeline, the amount that is taken out. Then people are complaining about the water being ruined. The DEC has strict regulations covering the creek and river crossings with inspectors right there to make sure it is enforced. No water is damaged. Our state does a great job regulating it. And then if we should get into fracking and water supplies damage, then we would talk about the methane gas that sits in pockets above the natural gas. A quarter mile from my house, there is a home that back in the 70s could light their faucet water, just like Dimmick, PA homes could do back then and now. And then they blamed it on the gas companies on it and to get money and sympathy for a problem they have always had. I believe New York State could frack natural gas with all the technology and science out there with no well water being damaged, no streams being damaged, no wildlife and fish being hurt. We have had pipelines going through our state for at least a century. I just want one more real quick. It's just that this pipeline going through the communities would benefit from the taps, the schools, the taxes that they wouldn't have to charge the people. It would be a great benefit to the communities all the way up the 125-mile Constitution pipeline.
Thank you. My name is George Finn. I am a landowner, Windsor, New York. I came to dispel this misconception about the contamination of the water. The Millennium ran through my father's farm 63 years ago. They put it in, they laid it right into the creek. There was momentarily a disruption to the environment. But after that, the environment healed itself from the temporary wound. There has been no water contamination. That was my first job, actually. I was 4 years old, making pennies shining the chainsaws for the people that cut the timber and everything. They just redid this pipeline recently, within the last couple of years. But over the 63 years, I still drink my water. It's never hurt a cow. And I offer anyone to come and see the damage to the environment. That pipeline lays in that creek, and unless I tell you it's there, you're not even going to know it. That's it. You can yell witch, witch, and burn people. Be a heretic for saying the earth is round, but the facts are the facts. A pipe doesn't leak unless there's a problem with the welding or whatever. You got to take the facts. And this pipeline that came through our farm 63 years ago has never caused one problem, not one.
I'm Stephen Payne, P-A-Y-N-E. I'm a proud member of the Laborers Union 785. I am a federal OSHA instructor. I'm also a pipeline safety instructor. I'm speaking in support of the Constitution Pipeline. We know that natural gas is an important resource that heats homes, produces electricity. We need it in manufacturing products. I recall last winter, I wanted to fill the natural gas tanks at our training center in Waverly. I was put on hold for 3 weeks because of limited supply. I was told schools, homes, and manufacturing were a first priority. The Constitution Pipeline is designed to transport enough natural gas each day to serve approximately 3 million homes in the U.S. Northeast. As we increase the amount of natural gas available to the New York energy markets, it will have a positive impact on reducing utility rates for New York residents. Speaking of reducing, I recently read a report on air quality in the United States. Due to the increased use of clean burning natural gas in the past few years, our air quality is the cleanest it's been in 30 years. Energy dependence, local economy, local jobs, clean air. With this many positives, I urge you in favor of this project. I thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. Craig Stevens, Silver Lake Township, Pennsylvania, sixth-generation landowner.
Your last name is
Stevens, S-T-E-V-E-N-S. Facts do not cease to exist because they're ignored. I have an actual pipeline that was installed across my family property. We were Silver Lake Township, Pennsylvania. Yeah, it's going to be the same guys putting the pipeline in more than likely. So here's the documentation from both Fish and Boat, which found them guilty of contaminating the waters. Whereas the commission alleges that the responsible party has committed an acts of disturbance of waterways and watersheds and pollutions of water. 5 criminal complaint charges, $20,000 fine. Let's go to DEP. That's your equivalent here, DEC. Ours is DEP. Bentonite HDD mud was noted deposited within the wetland. HDD bentonite drill mud was observed deposited in an excavation in a soil pile on site. Hay bales have been placed in wetland for crew access and containment purposes without a permit. Failure to prevent accelerated erosion. For failure to implement and maintain erosion and settlement controls. For failure to temporarily stabilize the right-of-way within 4 days. For failure to obtain permit of surface crossing of the wetland. They told us they were going to come in and put a pipeline in. And you know, first thing they did was threaten us to steal our land by eminent domain. I'm sure there's a lot of people, we just stood for the pledge, guys. The Republic, when you're a private property owner, whether you're in New York or Pennsylvania or anywhere in this country, no corporation should be able to come in and demand they're going to ram something across your property and you have nothing you can say about it. And that's what's going to happen to your neighbors. So the jobs that you're waiting to get are going to be from these guys back here from Constitution. They just sent letters out to a bunch of the neighbors along the route. Their lawyer illegally sent out Saul Ewing. Just sent out letters to hundreds of landowners telling them, we're coming on your property whether you like it or not because FERC gave us permission. No, they didn't. They don't have eminent domain. They didn't have it when they tried to steal my property too. They don't offer you anything. You get paid one time as a landowner, one time. If it's the state or federal government they're crossing, you get paid annually. How's that for treating people fairly? They're lying to you guys. There's Virginia, another pipeline, same thing, sending out letters before they've even gone through the process. Getting tired of listening to these guys lie to everybody. They dumped 100,000 gallons of liquid of unknown origin, that's also in this filing, on my property. It's a rural property. They didn't think anybody saw them. Too bad I had my forester up there working and caught them. They had to pay for that too. But they don't fix it. They were fined 20 grand. Fish and Boat fined them $20,000. And DEP fined them about $35,000. I said, great, have them come in and clean up my property. They didn't. Thank you.
How you doing, Ray Kimball, K-E-M-B-L-E. I'm an ex-gas worker out of Pennsylvania. We don't want the Constitution Pipeline in Pennsylvania because we've just gotten orders from different people already where they are canceling our homeowners insurance if you have a pipeline on your property, and the banks are now demanding full payment on loans because you permitted a pipeline on your property without permission from the bank to do it. The blowouts we've had in our creek beds down there, they contaminated 5 creek beds from blowouts. They blew out 4 roads. This is just trying to put the pipeline through. It's not even counting about the number of compressor stations that we've had blow up in Schoharie County. And these are all ran by Williams. Williams Central has been on fire 3 times since it's been in production. They're trying to expand it now because that's where the pipeline is going to start. The people over there don't want it, and they're fighting it now in Pennsylvania. They don't want it there. So it's going to be kind of hard to get it here. We're not going to let it down there. Thank you.
Jerry Heenahan, H-E-N-E-H-A-N. With pipelines come compressor stations. In 2000, my wife and I built a house at 350 Dunbar Road in West Windsor. For 10 years, we enjoyed crystal clear night skies, country fresh air, and areas so quiet we could hear the snow fall off the pine trees on a winter morning. When Laser Midstream, now Williams, proposed a gas compressor station half a mile from my home, I feared the presence of this massive facility would alter the peace and beauty of our world. Executives from the company at a public hearing promised we would, quote, never see it, never hear it, or smell it. You'll never even know we're there, unquote. This proved not to be true and is not true today. We have appealed to the government and government agencies at the town, county, and state levels. All they can tell us is they can only enforce what they are authorized to do by existing laws and regulations. I urge all communities to understand the post-gas transportation atmosphere. Some examples. After 4 years, no school, municipal building, or residence in the town of Windsor has access to the natural gas being transported through it. The facility completed in 2011 was declared state-of-the-art, but continuous efficiency upgrades include 2 6-month periods of 24/7 activity, and the tax assessments to the facility were never changed, even though Williams brags about spending $15 to $20 million spent since 2012. The New York State DEC acknowledges that the regulations it would need to protect the health and safety of the communities within the GSC do not exist. Misery might like company, but we don't want other communities going through and suffering as we have and we are. I urge the residents involved in every community to get every commitment from every company in writing. We urge the local governments to understand they will have no regulatory control once the gas starts moving. We ask the unions to support our position and ask their employers to do the right thing. We ask Constitution to commit to building infrastructure if they're going to do it, and to provide gas to all the communities along the pipeline as the pipeline is being built, and commit the gas as a priority to these communities regardless of how much greater the profits might be by bypassing these customers and shipping the gas elsewhere domestically or exporting the gas outside our country. We ask the DEC to establish all the necessary regulations to manage the control of all aspects in health and safety prior to the first shovel of dirt being removed. Thank you.
Yeah, it's Mark Lippolis, L-I-P-P-O-L-I-S, 330 Dunbar Road, Jerry Heenahan's neighbor. We built back in 1991. Lovely country atmosphere out there. The 12-inch Columbia gas line was on my property. I knew that. My house is 69 feet from the old 12-inch line. Knowing that, no problem there whatsoever. When the Millennium Line decided to approach us in 1996 and was finally completed in 2008, I learned a lot from it. And what I know now, I certainly would have done a lot of things differently back then, as the people on the Constitution proposed line should do today. I'm just going to give you some factual information along the way. I'm an engineer. I work for the state, know a little bit about pipe construction and backfill operations and everything like that with the industry. And the big thing is make sure you get everything in writing. Okay, don't assume anything that they're going to do the right thing, because they won't. If it's not in writing, you're done. Okay, and there was a lot of problems along the way. Yes, the one big problem was boy, look at all this money I'm going to get for all the trees they cleared out and everything like that. Yeah, it was a pretty good compensation package in the beginning. And to try to get them go back there when they were all done with it after the backfill operation, which consisted of a 6-foot trench, just throwing the dirt in there and letting it settle on its own. And it would settle like a foot over a year's time frame. To try to get them to go back there and redo it was almost impossible. But anyway, I knew that, and the 30-inch line, a much better line than the 12-inch line, because that was put in 1949. But the big thing that a lot of you people don't know today is that we have the Williams compressor station in our backyard. I'm within a half-mile radius of it. They have a 16-inch line that comes up from the gas fields in Pennsylvania. Okay, now nobody's making a dime on this gas coming up from PA, except the residents who set a precedence with this 16-inch line. And they went with a 16-inch line because they had to keep it under 10 miles. Otherwise, it would have been a 30-inch line. It had to go through FERC, but they didn't have to do that. So they did the 16-inch line, and Williams wanted that gas to their compressor station. That's why they bought the place. And the bottom line is that the residents of Windsor that pipeline runs through held tough with them. They didn't get a one-time deal in the beginning. They set a precedence where they got paid per linear foot per year for that pipeline to be readjusted after 20 years. That's what you guys need to do, and we dropped the ball. Broome County dropped the ball, and Tioga County was the only smart county out there with the Millennium Pipeline. Nobody in Broome County learned from that.
Thank you, Mr. Lapoulis.
$1 fee per linear foot.
Scott Clark.
My name is Scott Clark. Do I spell my name? Is that what I do? S-C-O-T-T, C-L-A-R-K-E. I came prepared to speak tonight, and I'm not going to address what I had prepared, but what I'm going to address is the room. I've been standing up probably since 2008, and I'm really appalled by the way people treat other people. I've recently had a tragedy in my life. My daughter committed suicide. So I want you to listen to what I have to say. I've talked to Vic Furman, and I've talked to a bunch of people, and I've tried to listen to both sides of this issue. And what I hear is a lot of times people speak and decide that disagrees. They're talking and not listening. I want you to listen to both sides. Be respectful. I thought we were all raised the same, where we were respectful to one another. And I'm not seeing that in this room, and I'm appalled by that. Now, I want to state my position. I don't think the pipeline should be approved. I have Millennium Pipeline on my property. Just one example. The guys that came through on my property, I said, could you save some trees for me? Oh, absolutely, Mr. Clark. We can save those trees. I'm a steward of my land. And I take this from my grandfather and my father, or my grandparents and my parents. And they wrapped some tape around the trees that I asked to save, and I said, thank you very much. About a week later, I hear chainsaws at 7 in the morning. They're cutting those trees down. Now, the example that I have is a lot of times what the companies say and what they do are completely different. They said, as Mr. Heenan and Mr. Lapolis, who are involved with Crow, and that group was created in my garage because we had some concerns. We don't have a lot of answers. I speak respectfully to Carolyn Price because at least she is listening, and that's my point here, to listen to one another. No cat calls or anything like that. We have issues with the compressor station at Williams, and we have a lot of non-answers. I would like answers to those questions prior to, prior to proceeding with this. And again, be respectful for one another. And I want to thank the person that once told me to sit down, because that's one of the reasons I'm standing up, is because that person told me, sit down. So again, I say, do not approve the project. I will hand you my written form at a later date.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Hello, my name is Madison Dundon, and I am Taylor Dundon, D-U-N-D-O-N. I'm speaking for the regard to the Constitution Pipeline proposal submitted by the Constitution Pipeline LLC regarding the construction of a 124-mile-long, 30-inch natural gas pipeline in northern Pennsylvania and southern interior of New York. I understand that the Constitution Pipeline will increase the amount of regionally produced natural gas available in the northern east to heat homes and power manufacturing opportunities in New York. I urge the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation to approve the Constitution Pipeline. Construction payrolls from the project will be over $190 million. Well, nearly $80 million of that amount paid to in-state workers. The balance of the payroll will go to specialties pipeline workers with expertise in interstate pipeline construction. In addition, the Wright Compressor Station construction will generate payroll of nearly $1.4 million. My father is a member of Laborers Local 785, and he and many of his brothers have held temporary jobs related to the construction, installation, and upgrading pipelines in New York. Please rule in favor of the Constitution Pipeline. The regulations will be ensured of proper safety and environmental friends construction and pipeline, and the project will be provided in needed jobs in the air. Thank you for your time, and please in favor of the 401, the related permits.
Michael Dundon, D-U-N-D-O-N. Now that's a tough act to follow. I'm going to try though. Hello and good evening. My name is Michael Dundon. I am here this evening to express my support of the Constitution Pipeline, which is proposed to be constructed in Broome, Chenango, Delaware, and Schoharie counties in New York State, and Susquehanna County in Pennsylvania. As you may know, the jobless rate in the southern tier is high, comparable to the New York State and national average. Williams Pipeline projects have provided union jobs to the members of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 325, plumbers and pipe fitters Local 112, operating engineers Local 158, to name a few. Moreover, Williams has contracted with several New York employers to employ union workers in the area for work on other facilities located in Pennsylvania. The Constitution Pipeline will generate significant economic development opportunities while also operating within the strictest regulations of an interstate pipeline in Pennsylvania and New York State. Additionally, construction of the Constitution Pipeline will result in approximately 1,300 jobs during the approximately one-year period of construction. I'm a proud member of the Laborers Local 785, and I respectfully ask that you grant Williams and their partners in the Constitution Pipeline proposal the necessary permits to construct the pipeline. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for being here. I know it's not a good time, especially at night. People would rather be home with their families, but this is a really, really sensitive issue, and I'm aware of that. My name is Stephen Stoddard, S-T-O-D-D-A-R-D. I live in the town of Colesville here in Broome County, where I own a home and property. I'm also a proud member of Teamsters Local 317, and I work on pipelines. Last year I worked on a pipeline in the area just south of Buffalo, New York. I was on what's called a tie-in crew, and we tie in pipe in areas where they don't go through like they do with a main line because it's a wetland or a stream or a water body or under a road. We worked directly on stream crossings, and what we were doing was digging up old pipe that had been in the ground for 50 years without an incident. And that pipe wasn't even coated like today's pipe is. Working on this crew allowed me to see and take part in how our environment is protected during the crucial stages of moving through these sensitive areas of wetlands, stream crossings, and water bodies. I've helped cut through a stream, and I've seen the care that the operators and the laborers take as they meticulously put that stream back, and the next day you can't even tell that they were there. Now that's pretty impressive. These people are professionals. This is what they do for a living. They're highly trained and highly skilled. In 1992, a large shopping center was built in the middle of a swamp in Vestal, New York. That's Walmart. That swamp's gone forever, never to return. We don't do that. We go through and we put everything back as we found it when we go through wetlands and streams. We don't completely obliterate it like they did with a store. So if we can build a store in a swamp, I'm sure we can permit a pipeline. The environmental impact statement from FERC I got on a disc at my house. That's almost 4,000 pages long. That would be that much paper, at least, if you printed it. And if you had to send that to everybody that was on the list that requested a copy, it would probably fill this room. That's a lot of trees. That disc was made out of petroleum products. That's why we have technology like that, is because of petroleum. The fact is, DEC is qualified to issue the permits that are necessary for the Constitution pipeline. Public comment's been made. It was made last year. I urge you, please, permit this pipeline. My life depends on it. I have no job right now. I worked 2.5 months last year because there's no work in New York State. This is a land of opportunity, like it says.
Hello, my name is Joseph Zapata, last name spelled S-O-P-A-T-A. I currently live in Binghamton. My family lives in Kirkwood and Windsor area. Grew up here my whole life except the 6 years I spent in the United States Marine Corps. I'm here to speak out against the Constitution pipeline. I'm not here to speak against jobs. There are many jobs out there that are fitting for pipe fitters. Solar. There are so many pipes in a solar hot water heater, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm here because I'm really glad that we picked this location tonight to have this hearing, because 3 blocks from here, they are transferring T5 frac sand, silica-based T5 frac sand, from train to truck down to Pennsylvania for the frac jobs. At this time, it's every 5 minutes in 3 locations in Binghamton, there's a truck coming out carrying 30% of the dry additives for fracking right in the sand. Federal loophole. It can come off the rail yard, go on the truck, get on the highway, go to PA. That's how it is allowed to happen, even though fracking has been banned in the state of New York. If we allow the Constitution pipeline, which is an open pipeline, any municipality can tap into this pipeline, which means a compressor station at every single spot they want to tap into. That's a lot of pollution. Families have to live around those compressor stations. There'll be one in Windsor, and you look at the route, the proposed route, right down 88. How many towns are along 88? Sydney, Delhi, all these towns are going to be, I want natural gas. So what's going to happen? To leave it at this, there's going to be more frac trucks coming out of these pits 3 blocks from a school in downtown Binghamton. And this sand it goes through respirators. Okay, so even if it's in the air, I have pictures of this sand blowing out of the back of trucks with kids walking down the road on Broad Ave next to Agway. That's what's coming out of there. This is not for the highway department, for the bridge project. It's frac sand T5 frac sand is extremely dangerous to breathe in. It causes scoliosis. It's a cancer of the lungs. These are kids. Kids and elderly people are the most acceptable people to these airborne dusts from the silica sand. More gas. We need to move forward with sustainable energy and pipe fitters, solar hot water. There's so many connections that need to be fitted. If you want to fit a school with solar hot water, you know how many pipe fitters are going to need to do that? We need to move forward. Thank you.
Can y'all hear me? My name is Vic Furman, F-U-R-M-A-N. I'm for the Constitution Pipeline. Let me tell you why. Pipelines are the vascular system for a growing energy need here in America. The smaller pipelines are the capillary system for the growing energy needs here in America. So I'm definitely for pipelines. And you guys, you can remove this if you want to talk. But I'd also like to say that I got many, many pictures that I've been taking since I was a little boy living with my grandmother in New Jersey, right up until the last vacation on the beach in Florida, of kids playing in silica, because that's what the beach is, silica. And I think that's a ridiculous statement to make, because the silica that's used in fracking is even bigger than the silica on the beach. Silica is nothing more than sand. I wanted to make that perfectly clear. I'm for pipelines because we haven't found a way to light a pipeline from Saudi Arabia to America. I'm for pipelines because of $2.30 gas here in New York State. I'm for pipelines because I like pipelines. we need to stand up for this, people. This fear-mongering stuff, it's just pure fear-mongering. I'm for pipelines because they create jobs, they heat the school, they're going to supply gas to factories, and there's no way in hell we should put a stop to the pipeline. And I feel sorry for the DEC. I was talking to a few of them tonight, and I asked them if they were going to keep the green uniforms with the decision that was made very recently to ban gas fracking in New York State. We all saw what happened 8 years ago when our governor laid off hundreds of DEC workers. And now we have hundreds of kids in Malone up in upstate New York taking jobs to learn how to be DEC officers without jobs in New York. They have to go outside the state for those jobs. There's no way we should send our people out of state. There's no way fracking should ban in New York. And I have a real quick letter I got from Dr. Shaw that I want to read to you. I'm faking it anyway. Dear Mr. Furman, thank you for your recent inquiry. Of course, I'm Dr. Shaw, and I disagreed with the DEC. That's why I was forced to retire. And I'm sorry about the decision that the DEC and Governor Cuomo orchestrated in New York, because many people are going to be without gas and without jobs. And we're talking about people who live in the rural areas where they're going to be hooked up to a 2-inch pipeline, coming off that 10-inch pipeline, coming off that 30-inch pipeline, to give them cheap American-grown energy. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dan Reynolds, R-E-Y-N-O-L-D-S. I grew up on farms in northeastern Pennsylvania and upstate New York. I can turn the mic off, I don't need it. Anyway, oil, antifreeze, hydraulic fluid. Growing up on farms, when I was a young boy on my grandparents' farm and uncle's farm, what did we do with that oil? Spread it on dirt roads. What did we do with that hydraulic oil? Wherever a hydraulic line busted, we just left it there. We never picked it up. We didn't have diapers. We didn't have things that would absorb the oil. We didn't even have Speedy Dry on the farm. Fertilizers and manure. Where do you think that ends up? In your water. Salt and brine that they put on the roads here in the state of New York. They mine it in New York. What do they do with it? Put it on the roads. Ends up in the water. I am a pipeliner, and I have been a pipeliner for about 8 years. When a spill happens on a pipeline, it is contained, it is cleaned up properly, effectively, and immediately. If a hydraulic line should burst, work is stopped for that machine until it is fixed properly. The machine does not track across the ground. The machine does not go over a creek. That machine does not move until it is fixed. Mechanics are on site. It is repaired immediately. I remember blowing a line on a tractor when I was a kid. What did we do? Drive it to the barn because we didn't have tools to fix it. Where do you think that hydraulic oil went? All over the roads, all in the water, so on and so forth. My house was built in 1954. I live in Endicott. I have the original furnace in my house, forced hot air by natural gas. A lot of you people out here have natural gas furnaces in your house. Your houses were probably built before mine. Guess what? At some point, someone had to have this in their backyards in order for us to heat our houses. The need for gas. Ask people who heat their homes with oil out in Greene, out in along 88, out in Oneonta, $1,000 plus just to heat their, and that's a very cheap estimate, to heat their house with oil as opposed to natural gas. This area, outside of this area, ask the farmers what they're going to do. South of Buffalo, I was working in Buffalo, south of Buffalo, those farmers have been heating their farms, producing their own electricity, heating their houses since the 70s. The reason for the pipeline to make it possible is to remove and replace old pipelines that may have issues and may leak. I own a diesel vehicle. They can make diesel fuel out of natural gas. My vehicle gets 47 plus miles per gallon all the time, and it's not a hybrid. I am for this. I do hope that you approve the FERC permits. Trickle-down economics. I know I'm short on time. If a farmer gets paid a good sum of money, he buys a tractor. Who repairs the tractor? Tractor facility. He buys a truck. Who repairs the truck? The car dealership. Let me tell you something. Trickle-down economics goes straight across the board. Mom and pop grocery stores, mom and pop diners, laundry mats. I might actually buy a new TV with it.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you very much.
I'm Dr. Alicia Pagano, P as in Peter, A, G as in good, A-N-O, Pagano. I was born in Sydney, New York, brought up in Unadilla, New York. My family had been around these hills and rivers and mountain areas for probably 300 years, different towns in the area. I'm here tonight because I want to make certain that the DEC, if they should approve the Constitution pipeline, have taken all precautions, because I'm here speaking on behalf of my grandchildren, Cody, Amanda, and Theo, who will be here living in these areas after they say goodbye to me. And I'm here not to prevent people from jobs. I look out at you very handsome and strong orange shirt men out there, and a few women, not as many women as we might have, and that I want you to have jobs, but I see that the world is changing. Once we did horse and buggy, and then we did car, and then we did airplane. Once we did whale oil. Once we are doing gas. Once we'll do solar and others. And I'm for the future, not just the past. Since record keeping began 200 years ago, the Susquehanna River Basin has proven one of the most flood-prone watersheds in the nation. These floods may occur through March through September. My property is contiguous to Carrs Creek, just 1/2 mile northeast upstream of the proposed Constitution pipeline crossing Route 23 and Carrs Creek. And Carrs Creek is a very volatile area with 2 major 100-year floods in just the past 5 years. During floods, the creek roars down the stream, shoving trees and large rocks out of the way like playthings, taking trees, land, and all on either side as it rushes down to the Susquehanna. In 2006, just a few miles from the proposed crossing, Little Carrs Creek washed out a 50-foot section of our well-constructed highway I-88 and killed 2 truck drivers. In the past 2 floods, Carrs Creek has torn away over 20 feet width of my good farmland, tearing away a 15-foot high bank with 100-year-old trees as they were plummeted down the rushing waterway. I can just imagine that stiff pipeline doing the twist as it wiggles its way in the earth to the melody of spring's melt and heave-ho, or the tune of summer's rushing waters. A mere pipeline is nothing to an angry creek that moves rocks, trees, and more in torrential flooding. I wonder what the pipeline is planning to do to protect its own pipeline on the banks of my little creek as it goes by it and under it. And I want to make certain they do before I would want you to approve the pipeline. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having this hearing. First of all, I want to say I have confidence in FERC. I have confidence in the New York State DEC. I especially have confidence in our union contractors, and I especially have confidence in my union brothers and sisters out here tonight. That we will build this pipeline, and it will be in safe operation for a minimum of 100 years. After all, Williams and others are making a $700 million investment here. We don't build pipelines to have them leak. We build them to flow gas to the Northeast. If any of you read what happened last winter, they nearly ran out of natural gas and propane up in the old New England market. There was actually talk about having rolling blackouts in order to ensure that at least natural gas was available to the homeowners to heat their homes. This is the facts. Do the research. The gas is needed, and I know that's already been established, and that's why the issuance of necessity was made. I want to express my support and approval of the approval of the New York State DEC permit application in regards to Constitution Pipeline Iroquois Compressor Station project. I believe the applications involved in this project have been adequately addressed, all issues presented with the 124-mile-long Constitution Pipeline project. As business manager of Labor's Local 785, I represent 108 hardworking men and women of Local 785. The majority of our members live and work right here in the Southern Tier and Central New York region. Due to the aging pipeline infrastructure installed 40 more years ago and the increased demand of natural gas in New York and the New England market, pipeline construction has become a significant portion of our work for our local union laborers. Sorry, I had to handwrite part of this. The use of local union labor on Constitution pipeline ensures that it will be built by our neighbors and members of the local community with the experience and knowledge of the construction pipeline safety and with little impact as possible to the surrounding environment. In our experience, the professional pipeline contractors and their employees take environmental compliance very seriously and are very stringent about compliance. Inspectors are on site to ensure environmental compliance at all times. Labor's Local 785 members who work on pipeline undergo training in both worker safety and environmental safety. Our members live here, hunt, fish, hike, and care about the natural beauty of our lands. Protecting them as we help provide our energy needs is important to each of us. New York pipeline infrastructure is aging. New lines need to be put in to handle the new demand. New lines, such as Constitution, have been engineered to have minimum environmental impact on wetlands, and they incorporate the latest state-of-the-art technology to ensure they're safe, reliable, and to transport energy. It's estimated that the 20% of the total construction budget will be spent to ensure environmental compliance. Please approve this pipeline. Thank you.
Ray Lewis, LEWIS. I am a 35-year proud union member. My three brothers are all lifetime union members, and we will all die proud union members. However, none of us would ever take a union job that is dependent on stealing people's land through the process of eminent domain. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Denton. I'm an attorney from Elmira, represented a number of the landowner groups. Tonight, I address my remarks to the... Yes, sir.
If you could speak right on top of that top microphone, that's the one that projects.
This one? Okay. I'm addressing my remarks to the administrative law judge, because he's the hearing officer. What I'd like to do is provide some perspective. This is an environmental hearing. It's not an up or down on the pipeline. And one of the things I think that most of us forget is that New York hasn't been an Eden environment in almost 13,000 years. That what they call anthropogenic pervasiveness is true of New York. That is, the Native Americans lived here for 12,000 years and have a profound impact on the environment of upstate New York. Their method of farming was slash and burn, which means that they would cut a great area of the forest, let it sit for a year, and then the next year burn it. And the third year, then they would farm it. And when the soil was depleted, which came quickly because of the nitrogen exhaustion caused by corn planting, they would move on and let it go fallow, and it would grow up again. There are significant environmental impacts to that. It's basically forest clearing. And during those first 3 years, there is a total loss of carbon sequestration. And of course, during the planting season, there's a less sequestration because it's no longer trees and forest and brush. And of course, when they're growing, there is a nutrient deficiency that's going to develop in the property. So this was not the noble savage. It was, like most primitive farmers, slash and burn. And that's very important when we consider the impacts of this pipeline. It's not on wilderness. It's not on forever wild. And most of the farmland, most of the forest land through which this passes was just 60 or 70 years ago open field. So it's primary or secondary succession forest. And it's long had an anthropogenic ecosystem, that is, substantially impacted by man. And we would just like to have the DEC consider that in their consideration of this permit. Secondly, when it comes to water, the Indians were not noble environmentalists. The Native Americans, when they fished and hunted, used very substantially, if you will, large techniques. When it came to fishing, they would either have fish weirs, which collect a lot of fish, or they would, when it came to hunting, they would create a V, burn down part of the forest, and drive hundreds of deer into this V, and then kill them hundreds at a time. This is a very effective way to gain food, which is what they did. There we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Denton. And remember, you can submit written comments.
Oh, yes, we will. My name is Warren Osterhout. That's O-S-T-E-R-H-O-U-T. I am a landowner on the Constitution Pipeline where it will be running. Ran a small business there. I had a farm on this property. Let me say that I'm very much in favor of the Constitution Pipeline. I feel that the expansion of natural gas drilling has been a great and wonderful thing for the USA. I know that the Constitution Pipeline is going to great lengths to satisfy the New York State DEC because I have watched them work on my property where there is a small stream passing through. As a small contractor who's worked around projects that require permits from the DEC, I know about the paperwork required to get a permit for this type of a job even. Let us trust the New York DEC to get this job done correctly and help our country to remain the great nation that it is. Now that's what I'm going to submit, but let me say this, that as we are people, if our ancestors had not drilled for oil, where would we be today? Yes, we can use it. Solar, we can use a lot of energy, but what's going to power our factories, our cars, our ships, our trains? We have access to this gas. It's there waiting for us to get. What would happen if it weren't for eminent domain? There would be no reservoirs. There would be no I-88. What would we do as a people if it weren't for the government allowing this? As you drive up and down Interstate 88, you will notice a tremendous number of power lines going over the I-88 because, and especially 81 in Pennsylvania, they're moving power into New York City. They need it. They needed our water. We no longer can farm our reservoirs. We've lost a lot of land to it. And all I'm going to say is thank you and good luck. Let's hope we can get this job done.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Alex Atordo. I am a consultant with Energy Justice Network, and my other affiliation is with the Industrial Workers of the World. I'm a union delegate and a generations old union member for my family. and I follow in that tradition as well. So my comments on the water quality issue that you're looking at in terms of the Clean Water Act and stream crossings are just based on experience that I have installing erosion and sediment controls as a trade for as long as I've been able to work. My father's had me working in landscaping and construction for a long time. And I'll say that observing, I'm from Pennsylvania, observing the construction of transmission lines and gathering lines across the state, not because of the workers who install them, but because of the engineers who supervise the environmental part of these construction projects, erosion and sediment controls often go neglected. After every rain event, it's required, if you're a builder for a house and you have erosion and sediment controls in a segregated topsoil pile, you have to observe the erosion sediment controls and make sure they're not full. The compost sock isn't more than half high in silt. The construction and silt fence is not full, that it's stable, and all of those things. The hay bales are installed correctly. I would ask that whatever contractors that are chosen to do this work, and this is not an attack on my brothers in the union, that they're looked into in their compliance history, not just in New York, but in Pennsylvania, where there's been a lot of miles of pipeline laid. And I find that, and I'll give an example, in the Lackawaxen River, there was Henkels and McCoy was the contractor in 2011 when Hurricane Irene hit. There was 100-yard wide, not 100-foot, 300-foot wide crossing of the Lackawaxen River. It was a wet crossing, which required the road to be constructed. It's where I fly fish, so I observed it very carefully. Hurricane Irene hit, and we've had Hurricane Sandy since, and Tropical Storm Lee. In a tropical storm or 5, 10, 100-year storm, erosion and sediment controls have to be observed. And there was a landslide. The road in the river washed down the river, and there was gravel and riprap and everything down. And that disturbs trout fisheries, which are also an economic boom for this area. Upstate New York has been a destination for my family for fishing, and I would ask that you take a look at the effect on macroinvertebrates and trout food and bass fisheries in the area. You're looking at non-navigable waters, which are trout fisheries. That's very important to conserve. And I would say that if a contractor is chosen by Constitution Pipeline that's not been in compliance across Pennsylvania, they're not going to do much of a better job in New York. And for your consideration, I would say also that, well, there you go. Thank you. Sorry.
Claude Crispell, CRISPELL. I was in active labor for 32 years and worked with gas pipelines. They have very strict safety rules. When we clean the shrink wrap the welds on the pipe, every weld is inspected and x-rayed. The inspectors won't let us start until he arrived on a job. I hear this is only a temporary job. Well, all my jobs were temporary from a week to week, a year and a half. But I made more money on the gas pipeline in 9 months than I ever made on any building trade job in a year. I repaired my house, bought a new living room suite, new rifle. I'm still enjoying all these things today. Plus, I paid a lot of taxes on that money, too. In the early 90s, we had shortages of gas because of real bad winters. The lack of gas, they were shutting schools down, factories. So they put a 12-inch pipeline to alleviate the problem, temporary. I worked on that, and then year 2000, the Millennium Line was supposed to start year 2000. The extreme activists got their way. It was held up for 7 years. Let's not let this happen to the Constitution Line. Hammer out the real problems and not listen to the hype. Natural gas heats homes, factories, government buildings, powers electric power plants. It's also used in fertilizers, plastics. Gas is familiar and safe and affordable. All through Pennsylvania, towns, factories are switching from dirty coal to natural gas. The city of Pittsburgh switched their coal-fired plant to natural gas, saving consumers on average 30%. Dow Chemical in Pittsburgh saved over $1 million in 1 year. Pittsburgh Steel is expanding its steel factory. They're able to sell steel cheaper than China. Youngstown, Ohio, steel factory is building a $650 million plant, reopening a closed plant after a $300 million remodel job. Elkland School in Pennsylvania ran a line to heat with natural gas with tremendous savings. Others are doing the same. Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, paid for a 4-mile gas line, convert their dirty old coal plant, which was right in campus, to natural gas. They also installed 2 electric generators and no longer...
Mr. Bristow, your time is up.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm for the pipeline.
Thank you. I'm Steve Herz, H-E-R-Z, resident of Windsor my entire life. I'm speaking in favor of the gas line. I hope DEC, I would urge DEC to approve the permit. I'm basically saying exactly, maybe not word for word, but pretty much word for word, what I said at the FERC hearing. I urged FERC and I'm urging DEC to do whatever you can to make sure the pipeline is built safely, make sure that the workers are union workers, well-trained union workers, make sure that the landowners are treated fairly, make sure that the communities are also treated fairly. I have no intention of speaking for 3 minutes, but I'd like to echo what Scott Clark said. And Scott is a good friend of mine. We've been friends for years. We disagree 180 degrees on the issue of natural gas, but he and I can speak about these things and still remain friends. And I think it's important that in the United States of America, and as it happens in Binghamton, New York, that we can have this exchange of ideas, exchange of views, and remain civil, and remain calm, and not talk past one another. Thank you.
My name is Brett Jennings, Councilor, Great Bend Borough, Chairman, Halstead, Great Bend Joint Sewer Authority. Some of the issues, if you ask the local 83 plumbers and pipe fitters of West Virginia, their trainer got tasked to teach 100 entry-level pipe fitters at a local community college because that company didn't want to hire union pipe fitters. Williams. On 28 August 2012, there was a DEP hearing for an air quality permit for a compression station on the laser pipeline. And same night, but that was for 3 engines. The same night, it's about 2 miles away, there was a Schoharie County Planning Commission meeting. Oh, they're increasing the size of the building for 5 engines. Cabot, another owner of the Constitution, can you trust them? They signed a consent order, an agreement, or a modification therefore in 2010. Later that year, in the local papers in Susquehanna County, Scranton, and Binghamton, they violated that order where the CEO had his letter, Dan O'Dingy's, that violated Title 18, Section 4904 of our laws in Pennsylvania. Why isn't he paying a $1,000 fine and a year in jail under the perjury provisions? Great Bend Township laser pipeline. They bored under people's property that they didn't lease. And then what do you want us to do? Remove it after it was bored under the Susquehanna. During that same operation of boring under the Susquehanna, various properties that are hooked to my sewer system were receiving brown water. And that was coming through my collection system into my sewer. What was it? Well, they were boring at the time. We don't know. All we do know is they were setting up hail bays with black streamers that you can see on Google Earth before, but not after the 2011 photos, between Route 11 and Orchard Road on Trollbridge Creek. I contacted the New York State DEC because they needed to have officers check Trollbridge Creek going up through Broome County, because this has happened multiple locations in Susquehanna County.
Thank you, Mr. James.
Hi, my name is Mike Guniscus. I'm not against it. I'm not for it.
Could you spell your last name for the court reporter?
No, I'm sorry. B-U-I-N-I-S-K-I-S. I'm not for it. I'm not against it. It's just that I want to see New York State's frack gas in that line. You know, I live on it. They're right on the gas, and I got to heat with oil. That's what really fires me up. And then we take all the turnings from the gas wells down there in Lauman at the dump. It's run by Casella Waste. They take all the turnings that's radioactive and everything else. We can take everything from PA, but yet we can't drill in New York. That's what's firing me up the most about this. If everything is so safe, why can't we drill here? That's all I want to say.
Thank you, sir.
Hunter, H-U-N-T-E-R. I'm a member of Local 158 Operating Engineers. I've worked on 2 pipelines. I've worked on the Millennium back in '08, and I worked on the Bluestone back in 2012. And I can tell you folks that these stream crossings, I worked a tie-in crew too. And I've dug through some of those stream crossings, and we've had inspectors out there that take pictures of that stream before you even start to dig through it. And those inspectors, when you're putting that stream back in, they'll tell you which rock goes where. That is how much oversight. And as far as the wetlands, some of these people see a mud puddle and they call it a wetland, and you got to respect that when you're working. But there's a lot of, so much misinformation that people are being fed. You know, this area needs something. Broome County is becoming Doom County. And if you want a good investment tip, invest in plywood, because they're going to be using a lot of it to be boarding up what's left if we don't get something going here. And I don't know what some of these activists want us to do. I guess we're going to have to move in caves and start wearing animal skins and hope the sun warms the rocks up enough to stay warm at night. And that's about all I got to say. Thank you.
My name is Robert Williams, and I have a little different perspective than most people here. I'm an environmental consultant and have been an environmental consultant since 1968. And for those of you who don't know this, that's before the Clean Water Act, and it's also before the EPA was formed. So I've been around for a long time, and I've worked on nuclear power projects, I've worked on solar projects, I've worked on fossil fuel, I've worked on garbage burning plants, I've worked on pipelines, I've worked in 32 different states, and I have a pretty good idea about what goes on in pipelines. I've worked for the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission on pipeline projects. And I'm going to cut a couple things short. What this young man said about having good people on site is good, and he's absolutely correct. You need to have good people on site. And what the last fellow said is also true, so I'm going to skip that stuff. And I'm going to tell you one of the things that happens, and the people from the DEC know this, and most of you probably know this too. Whenever you have to get a permit to do something, such as a 401 water quality permit, that permit carries with it regulations and it carries with it conditions. They're written into it. It's part of the planning process. You have to do what it says. Now when that happens, this requires that you do this stuff, and it also requires on a pipeline project a very interesting situation, and the last fellow alluded to that too, is that you are going to have inspectors on site. You're going to have environmental inspectors. You're probably going to have on a Constitution pipeline at least 3 different levels of environmental inspectors. You're going to have the third-party environmental inspectors that work for a contractor that work for the pipeline company. They're going to be there every day where somebody's doing some construction. They're going to be watching these guys, as the fellow said, they're going to be watching to make sure you put the rocks back where they belong and do that stuff. They're going to be sure that the silt fences in and the stuff that takes care of the stormwater runoff is in place. Then someplace else there's going to be another level of inspectors, and these are probably going to come from the state. And they're going to be on site not every day like this, but they're going to be coming around all the time and they're going to be checking on it. And there may be inspectors from the Army Corps of Engineers, because every time you cross a stream, you have to deal with the Army Corps of Engineers. If you're crossing ag land, there has to be an inspector on site for when you're crossing ag land. Lots of inspectors all the time. Does that mean that everything goes right all the time? No. That doesn't mean that everything goes right all the time. But when something goes wrong, there's an inspector there to say, whoops, stop, let's clean this up, let's fix it. Now, that's where you have to have the good inspectors on site and the good companies doing it. Now, this project is going to provide not just some negative benefits, because there's negative impacts. There's a negative impact associated with anything you do. I don't care whether it's a solar thing, windmills, whatever, there's some kind of negative impact. But there's also going to be positive impacts. Some of the positive impacts include providing better supply of natural gas to, and I don't hit me for saying this, to New York City and the Capital District, as well as farther east towards Boston someday. And it's also going to make it possible that many towns along the route are going to be able to connect into natural gas. And this is not, oh, I'm done already? Okay, all right. I sent it in already.
My name is Ellen Harrison, Harrison. I'm from Caroline, New York. One thing I wanted to speak to is the question of easements and eminent domain. I formed an organization, I forget, 6 years ago, called Fleeced, for people who signed gas leases and then realized that the contracts that they had signed were very detrimental to them and their properties and their property rights. And it seems as though something similar is happening with the easements and potentially for eminent domain. Somebody mentioned violating your mortgage. Somebody mentioned the fact that they couldn't get homeowners insurance. Basically, you're giving your land in perpetuity. So if anybody's thinking of signing an easement, you need to be mighty careful. New York State was wise enough to ban hydraulic fracturing, high volume horizontal drilling, hydraulic fracturing, fracking, citing the health risks. And it's interesting to me that a lot of the folks here who are wearing orange tonight don't seem to believe in any of the adverse health or safety issues resulting from fracking or pipelines or compressors. And I would urge them to read the health department report supporting that ban. Information is important. The speaker who said that there was a pipeline on his property and there had been no problems reminds me of the guy who thinks smoking is safe because her grandpa smoked 2 packs a day for all his life and he lived to 90. Well, that doesn't tell us that smoking is safe. Having banned fracking in New York, we are still facing what I'm calling collateral damages. Frac sand, pipelines, compressors, waste disposal, water being taken out of our streams and out of our aquifers. New York State should not become the highway for fracked gas. Fracking is not safe wherever it's done. We shouldn't be the highway system. Water is probably the greatest resource that we have here in New York State, and it's going to be increasingly valuable as climate change causes droughts in other areas. DEC should reject this pipeline application because we need to protect our water quality. My family installed geothermal, solar, and we purchased electricity generated through renewables. I would urge us to say it's time that we reject fossil fuels. They're destructive wherever you take them out of the ground. They're destructive in their transportation, and they obviously further climate change in ways that are destroying our planet. So I would urge us to get behind renewables. There are many more permanent jobs to be held in that area, so let's think about moving in that direction. Thank you.
I'm Judy Pierpont from Dryden, New York. P-I-E-R-P-O-N-T. Construction of the Constitution Pipeline, I believe, violates Section 401 of the Clean Water Act, and in particular, tree cutting along hillsides, flooding and sediment deposition in relation to the disturbance of the bed or banks of a protected stream or other water course. The Constitution Pipeline Environmental Impact Statement raises numerous questions about water quality and safety along the length of the pipeline. The roots of trees protect the integrity of hillsides. As trees are cut and the roots die, the result is long-term turbidity and sediment deposition in streams and creeks, both near and far from the pipeline route, especially during heavy rain and snowmelt. Flooding, runoff, and washouts already threaten roads and residences in areas along the pipeline. As climate change brings more intense precipitation, we need stream and hillside tree restoration, not destruction. Washouts and floods are a severe threat. The disturbance proposed by the pipeline construction and cleared easements will damage hundreds of watercourses. The New York Code demands that none of these water bodies suffer any negative effects. Thus, considering the environmental history of this region, DEC should act to protect streams and water bodies from continued danger of erosion along the proposed route, including hillsides, creek beds, and wetlands. The extent of the threat is not fully understood, as the study of all the water bodies was not complete. Around 30% is missing. The scope of the current environmental analysis does not address how flooding and related land disturbance will impact all streams, wetlands, and land parcels in the proposed routes. Thus, no negative environmental impact statement finding can be issued. Pipeline construction companies cannot be relied upon to understand the terrain or take care in their construction methods. In Pennsylvania recently, the Department of Environmental Protection announced a settlement with Tennessee Gas Pipeline Company for multiple violations of the Clean Streams law during the construction of a natural gas pipeline in 2011 and 2012 through 4 counties in northeast and north central Pennsylvania. We cannot expect Constitution Pipeline and those with whom it contracts to act in the best interests of our environment while this project is in construction or once it is completed. It is easier for them to pay the fine. The DEC must protect our water quality now by refusing to issue a 401 certificate. To protect our water quality, you must deny the 401 water quality certificate or hold adjudicatory hearings on this project. Thank you.
My name is Scott Kurkowski, K-U-R-K-O-S-K-I. I represent the Joint Landowner Coalition of New York, and our 70,000 members support the Constitution Pipeline. We know that in order to get gas to our homes, we have to have pipelines to do that. To get gas into this building, we have to have pipelines. We can't float it in with balloons. It has to come into our pipelines. It's a necessary part of our lives. I represent landowners and businesses throughout the communities in the path of this pipeline. Many use heavy oil, they use propane, they want to reduce their energy costs, they want to make their businesses more competitive, and they want to see cleaner air. And yes, cleaner air through natural gas. We're seeing it constantly, reducing our carbon emissions to levels we haven't seen since 1994, according to the federal government. So these are crucial issues. It's not really an either-or option, right? Our national energy policy is an all-of-the-above option. Because right now, if we completely switch to renewable energy, then we're not going to clean the air the way that we are doing now. My children are not going to see cleaner air if our option is renewable only, nothing else. So this is crucial. We have to continue this path of the all-of-the-above energy option. In Governor Cuomo's inaugural speech, he talked about New York as the great state that built the Erie Canal. Well, we're not asking for an Erie Canal. We're asking for a pipeline, an essential element of the infrastructure of our lives. If you listen to a lot of the statements tonight, you would think that no road, no bridge, no building should ever be built again. The fact of the matter is that everything we do in our lives have impacts. If we cut down a tree, oftentimes that creates a new habitat. And if you talk to people who are former DEC commissioners, people involved in conservation, they understand that these pipeline paths create new habitat. It all has new impacts. So this is the same infrastructure that we see in over 1 million miles of natural gas pipeline in this country. This is about jobs needed for our area. It's about continued support for our nation's energy security instead of leaving our energy needs in the hands of those who would like to do us harm. And most important, again, it's just about basic infrastructure for the way we honestly live our lives today. So let's do everything that we can. Let's do it all of the above. Let's pursue the renewable options as well. And let's make sure that we have these opportunities that come to our area. You have FERC approval. You have excellent proposals from the Constitution Pipeline to mitigate the impacts. DEC, let's get this job done. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is William Houston. And
Could you spell that?
Yeah, H-U-S-T-O-N, William. This pipeline First, I want to correct something Mr. Kurkowski just said. FERC has not granted approval. They're actually in a catch-22. They can't grant approval until DEC issues this water quality permit. DEC can't issue the water quality permit, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers can't do their survey work until they get land access and do surveys of the land. This applies to U.S. Army Corps. I'm not sure if it applies to you. And they can't get access to the land without eminent domain proceedings. So the eminent domain, so what FERC has done, FERC realizes, and you know, they're working in conjunction with industry here, that they realize they're in a conundrum that they can't get out of. They can't build this pipeline legally. So what they've done is they've issued something called, it's completely legally dubious, but it's called a conditional permit, where they're saying, well, we're kind of approving it pending these other permits. So they're trying to jumpstart this thing, but it's really doing it in an illegal way. And what I want to say is, we cannot underestimate the criminal nature of this enterprise. The National Environmental Policy Act is being violated in dozens of ways in dozens of FERC projects. This is just one. For example, NEPA requires that cumulative environmental impacts be looked at. I know you've got this narrow scope of this water quality impact, but the water quality impact comes from the Clean Waters Act. It's federal law. There are other federal laws that are being grossly violated by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and the applicant working in conjunction. In addition to failing to look at the cumulative impacts, this has been being asked for in dozens. I'm asking you to look at this. It's outside of this little narrow jurisdiction, but dozens of people in dozens of FERC applications all over this natural gas build-out in the Northeast have been asking for cumulative environmental impacts of this entire build-out, and it's required by NEPA, but FERC isn't doing it. So we are looking for, I am becoming less, I've attended so many of these hearings, how many have we been to? I am growing less confident that through administrative means, we can stop this project. So we are making plans, and I'm very inspired by the We Are Seneca Lake movement, where they are protesting a FERC permit that was illegally generated by doing civil disobedience. 180 people have been arrested there since late October, and people are making plans for an on-the-ground, this is a war, and we are going to defend this land, and we are asking for DEC to help enforce the law. Thank you.
My name is Peter Ruggieri, R-U-G-G-I-E-R-I. To have the Constitution pipeline requires the building of numerous compressor stations. Williams of Tulsa, Oklahoma is already running a natural gas compressor station in West Windsor. They came in saying they would be a, quote, good neighbor, unquote, to surrounding residents and to the community. But over the last 4 years, they have been anything but that. Their approach to safety has been minimalist, and they have had 2 major fires and explosions at the West Windsor station since the summer of 2012. A listing of incidents at Williams pipelines and compressor stations around the country run into the scores. They are a dangerous company. They deny responsibility for problems at the West Windsor station. They have failed to implement a safety alert system to notify surrounding residents if an emergency occurs, something that was recommended by the local fire chief. Local officials have found it impossible to enforce a town noise ordinance. And even DEC employees claim that their agency has no regulations in place to control air emissions occurring during venting and even regular operation. I don't believe New York State is ready to regulate the natural gas industry, so I cannot recommend the applications for Constitution, and I suggest you deny the application.
Hi, I don't actually have anything prepared.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Kim Michaels, K-I-M-M-I-C-H-E-L-S. I live in Afton, New York, and I'm a landowner, and I am very much opposed to the fracking and the pipeline. And I'd like to ask for your help in demanding an investigation of both our governor and our president, not just concerning this pipeline, but everything that Cuomo has done since he set foot into office. It is my belief that he is perpetuating both a fraud on the people of New York State and also an act of treason. Science against the people has been an issue in the United States since World War II. Following the war, before our soldiers even came back, they started bringing in Nazi scientists, doctors, patent lawyer, agents, intelligence agents, and brought them into our country under the guise of defending ourselves against Russia. As this proceeded, this was all done in secrecy, and it's in our government documents. They had later things, later programs after Operation Overcast and Project Paperclip, but this proceeded. This agencies were created after that, like the DOE, the Department of Energy, the Atomic Energy Commission, and they were allowed to operate under a veil of secrecy. And they did human radiation experiments that were documented in 1995. This came out during the Clinton administration. And this detailed things that, experiments that were done involving Cornell University, MIT, where they purposely put radiation in children's food. That Cornell, they fed cows radiation, and then the milk would purposely to give, so that the milk could later be given to American citizens, including children. MIT was involved in one where they gave radiation. It involved Quaker Oat Company. Rongelap Island, we dropped an H-bomb in their vicinity and proceeded to experiment and use these people as a human radiation experiment to see the effects not only on the people but on the effects through the food chain. No one was ever held accountable. Even after this was brought out with the Ed Markey report, Congressman Edward Markey, in 1986, it took almost 9 years before they decided to do at least apologize for it. But no one was ever held accountable, and because of that, these experiments have continued, and
Thank you, Ms. Michaels.
if no one's held accountable, it'll never stop.
If you have a longer comment, you can.
I'm finished.
My name's Michael Stolzer, S-T-O-L-Z-E-R. I live in the town of Oneonta. Don't have a prepared comment, didn't plan to speak, but just a couple of things. You know, I found that the Pledge of Allegiance was a quite appropriate moment and should have perhaps happened at the very beginning. But what it brought to mind was my concern over the announcement that the direction of the flow of the gas in the pipelines that the Constitution is connecting to is being reversed to go to Canada. The exportation, according to the U.S. Department of Energy, the exportation of natural gas is going to lead to higher heating costs for the average wage earner in the United States. So while it may be creating 8 months worth of work for some, it's going to be a lifetime of increased payments for others. I don't see that as patriotic. I don't see that as, I mean, my mother was a union worker her whole life. My father was as well, and I was a member of the Drug and Hospital Workers Union for years. I don't see that as unified labor. I see that as a divisive issue, and the U.S. Department of Energy also added that the only ones that were going to profit, that were going to benefit financially from this, were the gas companies and the downstream investors. So that I'm sure has an impact on the economy to some extent, but up here in rural New York State, you're not going to find a whole lot of downstream investors. You're going to find a lot of people on HEAP needing assistance for their heating costs. You're going to find a lot of people struggling to get by who don't have the benefits that union members do. You're going to find a lot of people who don't have mortgages to worry about paying because they're scrambling around every month to get the rent money together.
My name is Megan Holleran, Holleran. My family has property in the proposed Constitution pipeline right-of-way. We have not signed an easement. We're in Pennsylvania, and we've just this past Saturday been served our condemnation papers to begin the eminent domain proceedings. I'm not entirely clear on how this whole legal process works, but to me it seems that beginning the condemnation procedures on properties before something like a 401 permit has even been issued is to be frank, very arrogant. It gives a very strong sense of, this is going to happen no matter what. We don't really care what you think. And this has been consistent through every step of our negotiations with landmen over the past few years. The sense that we don't have much respect for your opinions, your properties, your desires, your any kind of working with you in a to have something that pleases everyone. I've also worked for the pipelines as part of the cultural survey, as part of the environmental impact statement. And even in my professional experience, the attitude from this pipeline in particular has been overwhelmingly arrogant, as though the line will be constructed regardless of anything that we might have to say, professionally or personally. I would urge the DEC to consider, in its decision to approve this permit, to consider this arrogance, to prove that environmental agencies are paying attention and do have the power to regulate and, if need be, stop pipelines, even when they think they can act without following these rules that have been put in place to make sure this is done safely. Working for pipelines is part of my livelihood. It's a large source of my income. I am not anti-pipeline, I am not anti-jobs, and I am not anti-industry. I am, however, anti-bully. And in this case, I would hope that the DEC will not be bullied into allowing this permit to be issued, even if it's not warranted. Thank you.
My name is Allison, Allison, Petrick, Petryk. And the proposed Constitution pipeline would have an irreversible effect on our environment, especially our regional water quality. As proposed, the pipeline would cross through multiple sources of public drinking water, 6 watersheds, a couple hundred wetlands and water bodies, high-quality streams, and including trout streams and 80 protected streams. During the construction and deforestation, there be increased sediment yields, and that can have adverse harmful effects on our plant and animals in our water. It can affect the water quality through increased total dissolved solids, the physical habitat, because it changes the substrate particle size, decrease the amount and diversity of macroinvertebrates, which are food for the fish and an indicator of water quality. And if there's less fish, there's less money for recreation and tourism industry. And an increase in sedimentation can also cause an increase in downstream nutrients like phosphorus. If large storms occurred at the same time of the construction phase, the sedimentation would be increased and the effects may seem further downstream and over longer periods of time. And I actually witnessed this, due to climate change, there's more severe weather, like hurricanes, and there was a great big mudslide that happened in my hometown because of the Tennessee gas pipeline. In 2013, I was a volunteer monitor for a pipeline in Pennsylvania, and we documented numerous violations that included sedimentation and erosion, destroyed wetlands, and even after they cut the trees, there is waist-high wood chips, and that buries and rots the root system of trees that are already living. And if it wasn't for these volunteer monitors, no one would notice this. They'd get away with this, and there's not enough money or, people to monitor this, and they'd get away with this. So I urge you to decline this. Okay.
Hazel Brandt, B-R-A-N-D-T. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I decided I had to. Number one, I am a full-blooded American, and I'm proud of it. I had a husband that was a World War II and a Korean veteran across both times. He was a member of Operating Engineers Local 825 out of, used to be Newark, now it's Springfield, New Jersey. And they had the job of building the Cannonsville Dam. But maybe a lot of you didn't know that a lot of people in Cannonsville lost their homes from eminent domain, so New York City could have their water. Well, they got their water, but now they don't want us to be able to do what we want with our land. And I think it's about time, Governor Cuomo said it's about time we do something. I am a widow of 4 years. I'm 81 years old. I had 5 children that had to leave New York State to find jobs. I was the first woman police officer in Broome County many, many moons ago. And I'm proud of everything I've done. And I'm in a movie about the gas business called Silent No More. And I wish everybody could see it. And I don't know what else I'd like to say because I wasn't planning on speaking. But I think we helped the New York City people get the water from Cannonsville. But no one knows that one night they smashed all the buildings in Cannonsville. And my husband and I and a lot of other people went up there at 3 o'clock in the morning and saw them light the town on fire. Please don't let me offend anybody, but it looked like an Indian uprising. And my husband was crying and I was crying. But they got their water, but now they want to hold us up. I'm for the pipeline and I'm for fracking. Thank you.
Michael Snow, SNOW. Sir, why are we here? Why are we here this evening? New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Is there anyone in this room who doesn't care about the environmental impacts of this pipeline? Stand up. Anybody? Really? Is there anyone in this room that does not care about the environmental impacts of this pipeline? Stand up. Why are we here? New York State Commission Service writes the book on pipeline. New York State Commission Service has rewritten the books on pipeline. I've worked from Ohio, West Virginia, Southern Pennsylvania, Northern Pennsylvania. For the past 10 years, I've worked pipeline. I started on the Millennium Line. 4 years, 4 phases. Dennis Rowe sits in this room today. He's a steward for the Operators Union. Him and I both sat in the same room, watched the New York State Commission Service hold their badges up, and tell all of us we've rewritten the rules for a pipeline. New York State Commission Service knows this. New York State Environmental Conservation knows this. No one in the continental United States works under more stringent rules for the environment. No one. Anywhere. You know that. We know that. Very few pipelines have gone through New York State in the past 8 years. Millennium, Bluestone. We were there, Denny. New York State Commission Service is on the job 24/7. Sorry, sir, they don't leave. They're there with their badges to work under those rules. If I step my foot into a waterway, do y'all know how much of a fine that is? If I disturb a stream, do you have any idea the consequences of my actions? Do you? You do, sir. You do, don't you? Why are we here? It has nothing to do with the economic values of the state. It has everything to do with the environment of conservation. Correct? Your decision will be based on hearings, correct? If it is.
I have, Mr. Snow, if you have written comments, you can leave them with us as well. Thank you. I do have a New State overlay. Again, it's MOVERY. No takers. Okay, is there anyone else here who would like to place a comment on the record before I close the record for the evening? Hearing no response, this hearing is now closed. Thank you all for coming out.